68 अक्षर ये ना जानो, 68 तीर्थ सार, 8 संपदा थी परमाणु, 68 दातार, समरो मंत्र भलो नवकार, ए छे 14 पुरवनो सार, समरो मंत्र भलो नवकार, ए छे 14 पुरवनो सार। नवपद एना नवनिध आपे, भव भवना दुख कापे, वीर वचन थी हृदय व्यापे, परमतम पद आपे, समरो मंत्र भलो नवकार, ए छे 14 पुरवनो सार, समरो मंत्र भलो नवकार, ए छे 14 पुरवनो सार, एना महिमानो नहीं पार, एनो अर्थ अनंत अपार, एना महिमानो नहीं पार, एनो अर्थ अनंत अपार, समरो मंत्र भलो नवकार, ए छे 14 पुरवनो सार, समरो मंत्र भलो नवकार, ए छे 14 पुरवनो सार।
Pranam, Jai Jinendra to everybody. Welcome to this second class on Kalpa Sutra. We started last week. So those of you who are new today, we'll just recap some of the aspects of Kalpa Sutra that we discussed last week and how we started so that you can catch up. This particular topic is probably going to run for several months, I presume, but we will see how it goes, and depending on what sort of interest we have, we will modify it according to what the general consensus is. Those of you who are new to this class, I'm Ajit Shah. We've been running these classes for about 9-10 months now, and we've had a lot of interest, many different topics. The last topic that we covered was Paresar Sajai, and we heard about the lives of many great men and women that are remembered in the Paresar Sajai. So let's start with the prayers. I'll just share my slides. Please feel free to raise your hands and ask any questions. I know that we have had a slightly different format before when people were advised to send a message. But I think if you can raise your hand, what I will do is give a break at about 15 minutes from now, and ask people to raise any questions at that time, and then again towards the end. And I suspect that some people feel a bit anxious about interrupting the class in between. If it's a relevant question and it can be answered in a short time, then I don't mind that either, because I think that helps move along the understanding. Okay. Let me share my slides and then we start off with the prayers. Okay. Let's start with the prayers. Namo Varihantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Vajjayanam, Namo Loe Sabbasahunam, एषो पञ्चनमुक्कारो सप्पपावपणासनो मङ्गलाणञ्च सव्वेसिं पर्वं हवै मङ्गलम् नमो अरिहन्ताणं नमो सिद्धाणं नमो आयर्याणं नमो ऊज्जायाणं नमो लोये सव्वसाहुणम् एषो पञ्चनमुक्कारो सप्पपावपणासनो मङ्गलाणञ्च सव्वेसिं पर्वं हवै मङ्गलम् नमो ओरियंताणम नमो सिद्धाणम नमो आयर्याणम नमो उत्सायाणम नमो लोये सब्ब साहुणम एसो पंचनमुक्कारो सब्ब पावपणासणो मंगलाणंच सव्वेसिं पर्वं हवै मंगलम वीर सरसुरा सुरेंद्र महितो वीरमुदा संस्थिता वीरेणाभियत स्वकर्मणि चयो वीराय नित्यं नमः वीरा तीर्थमिदं प्रौतमुत्तलं वीरशिखोरं तपो वीरश्रीधृति कीर्तिकान्तिनिचय श्रीवीरभद्रं दिश कमठे धरणीन्द्र च स्वजितं कर्म कुर्वति प्रभुस्थुल्य मनोवृत्ति पार्श्वनाथ श्रीस्तु वः आदिमं पृथ्वीनाथ मादिमं निष्परिग्रहं मादिमं तीर्थनाथं च ऋषभस्वामिनं स्तुमः यदुवंश समुद्रेन्दु कर्म कक्षुतासन रिष्ट नेमिर भगवान भूयादो रिष्टनासन अंगूठे अमृतवसे लब्धितड़ा भंडार श्री गुरु गौतम समरिये मनवांछित फलदातार okay. The regular students have probably noticed that I added a couple of more stutis in today's pratna. We remembered, in addition to Bhagwan Mahavir and Bhagwan Parshanath, we also remembered Bhagwan Nemnath and Bhagwan Adishwar, partly to remind ourselves that the Kalpa Sutra includes the narratives of their lives as well, along with brief narratives of all the 24 Tirthankars, but mainly during the understanding of Kalpa Sutra, we'll be mostly focusing on the life of Bhagwan Mahavir. The format of this class is, as you know, we are listening, we try and understand, and we try to reach at an understanding of the outcome. We listen, we reflect, we debate, and then when we question, we try and internalize the learning and ultimately incorporate it in life. A couple of slides that we shared last week, I'm including here. Just a summary of what we discussed last week. We reminded ourselves that the Kalpa Sutra is a holy text, the author of which was Bhadrabahu Swami, who was the last 14 Purvadhar. We'll come to what the knowledge of the Purvas mean later on in today's class. But Bhadrabahu Swami wrote the Kalpa Sutra as part of one of the Purvas. So the narrative about what's included is included in the 14 Purvas. So this particular aspect was written by Bhadrabahu Swami. So for us, it is current. The knowledge of 14 Purvas in other times may contain slightly different aspects, but overall, the knowledge contained within the Chaud Purvas would, by meaning, remain the same at the time of every Tirthankar Paramatma. The picture that you see in this, it's a detail of a leaf with the birth of Bhagwan Mahavir, 24th Tirthankar, from a Kalpa Sutra that was a version, the sort of printed version that was created around 1375, 1400. This is a Wikipedia entry. And this is what the Wikipedia says. There is a lot of literature that you can sort of Google and learn from. Um, those of you who read Gujarati, there is a lot there, and I've said I am looking for an English version of the Kalpa Sutra that maybe we can then share so that everybody can read. The original text is not read by Shravaks and Shravikas, it's only read by Muni Bhagwants. But we listen to the pravachans or vyakhyans based on the Kalpa Sutra. And I shared with you last week that the two sources that I'm going to be referring to, one is called the Kalpa Sutra Subodhika, which is basically a commentary on Kalpa Sutra, and it's a compilation of one particular commentary by Vinay Vijayji and some other aspects which I discussed last week. And that is the version that is generally read in during Paryushan by a lot of Sanghs and Shravaks like us when we read the Kalpa Sutra during Paryushan. The Kalpa Sutra contains the biographies of Tirthankar Paramatmas, particularly Mahavir Bhagwan, Parshanath Bhagwan, and in brief, the lives of the other Tirthankar Paramatmas, but it has a lot of other material as well. As it says here, it was put in writing around 980 or 993 years after Bhagwan Mahavir's Nirvana. This slide was empty last week. We briefly discussed some of these things, so I've included the contents in two slides, and then we'll go into the material of the Kalpa Sutra and how the Ashtanika Pravachans start. The word Kalp means conduct of Jain monks and nuns, and the rules of conduct are considered in the Kalpa Sutra, and the differences between the rules of conduct of the monks of the first and the last Tirthankar and the middle 22 Tirthankars are described. And the reasons for these differences are also described. So we will consider some aspects of this. This is still an introduction to the Kalpa Sutra, just to understand what is contained within it. And during our lessons, and during the reading of the Kalpa Sutra during Paryushan, a lot of the material is not always covered. I mean, normally, as I remind everybody, we have one Vyakhyan Pravachan of about a couple of hours. Sometimes even that is shortened during starting from the fourth day of the Paryushan. And that does not allow a lot of time to discuss everything. Normally, traditionally, where this is read thoroughly, there are two vyakhyans of Paryushan which are read during the morning, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and a lot of material is covered, and the Kalpa Sutra Subodhika actually covers the Vyakhyan, and in total there are about 9+ Vyakhyans. So they're read over those 4.5 days. Sorry, about 5 days. As far as the rules of conduct for monks are concerned, 10 different areas of the rules are considered, and the differences between the rules between the times of Bhagwan Mahavir, Bhagwan Rushabdev, and the middle 22 Tirthankars are also considered. We'll not go into the details of the individual conduct, but what I'm hoping is that by the end of the time that we complete the Kalpa Sutra as a topic in these lectures, you will all have been inspired enough to maybe make it a point from next year onwards to come to the Kalpa Sutra Vachan during Paryushan and listen to the Kalpa Sutra. I know that a lot of you may find it difficult when it's in Gujarati, but if there are enough of you who are interested, then we can try and work out something for next Paryushan so that we actually include a joined up effort where we can translate for those of you who find Gujarati very difficult. So let me know in your feedback as to how, whether there will be enough of you to want to proceed with something like that from next year onwards. A few of the 10 different areas of conduct rules are discussed below. So one of them is about whether monks are achelak or sachelak. And what is described here is when the Tirthankar Paramatmas take Diksha, all the Tirthankar Paramatmas are given a piece of cloth called Devdushya by the Indra Maharaj at the time of Diksha, and that is worn. So from one point of view, all the rules that everybody is given a piece of cloth, so they are sachelak, meaning that they have they wear clothes. But there are differences and on the rules. So at the moment, we have Muni Bhagwans who are Digambar, meaning those who do not wear any clothes. But obviously, in all times, Sadhuji Bhagwans would be wearing clothes. So there are differences there. One of the other rules of conduct are about the use of space, food, etc., made specially for an individual or a group of monks. So that is Adha Karmik or Audeshik. And then there are differences in the vows. What we'll focus most on today and in the future, a lot of these other 10 rules are going deeper into the conduct of Muni Bhagwans and what the differences are. But what we will focus on is the vows that a Muni Bhagwant or Sadhuji Bhagwants take, and the differences in the vows between the times of Bhagwan Mahavir and Rishabdev and the times of the middle 22 Tirthankar Paramatmas in this particular Chovisi. Now, what is described here is the reasons for the differences, and in discussing this, we will understand why the rules are different and try and understand better the nature of our times as well. So, in simple words, the people in the times of Bhagwan Rishabdev are simple and not easily able to understand things, so that they are not very learned and do not have the exposure to decipher things from a small instruction. So they are called Saral but Jad. Saral is simple, but they are Jad means that they do not have the understanding or intelligence or the background to be able to understand the deeper meaning of things. The people in the times of Bhagwan Mahavir, that is us, are not simple, meaning we are Jad and so we are Vakra, so we find it difficult to understand things. I mean, this is the general reason. Obviously, for individuals, that may not apply. So this doesn't mean that everybody is like that, but this is the reason why the rules of conduct are different between the times of the first and the last Tirthankar as opposed to the middle 22 Tirthankars. So people in our times in the Sasana of Bhagwan Mahavir are said to be Vakra and Jad, meaning we find it difficult to understand, but we also have a slightly different take on things, and we are more argumentative. And we will discuss this kind of differences with an illustration that is described in the Kalpa Sutra. There are a couple of illustrations, we'll just focus on one. And people in the times of the other 22 Tirthankars are saral and intelligent, meaning they are saral and buddhishali, and apply their intelligence to interpret instructions in the correct way. Let's try and understand exactly what happens and what the differences are. And I'll recite a story, but we are about 8:24 now. Does anybody have a question at this stage? Anybody? Okay, Darshana?
Mine's not a question as such, but it's, so we said the people of Bhagwan Rishabhdeo, they weren't very learned, and then
No, they were saral but jad, not very learned.
yes, and then there's people like us who are intelligent and
Are not learned and not as intelligent either.
This is 5, 6, and 7.
people like us, yeah. But is that more to do with all the changes that have happened in between, like the technological changes and everything, or
It's the nature of the times, basically. It is the nature, and this would be true in any future or even any past Ausarpini, Chovisi, where when the times are descending, there's a descending time cycle. The nature of our ability to understand and interpret in the correct way and follow a conduct of a monk in the correct way becomes that much more limited in this time. So therefore, these rules are slightly different for those two Tirthankar Paramatma's time. So the reverse order would apply in the next ascending cycle of time. So in the next show, we see the similar nature of people would mean that in the first Tirthankar of the next cycle, there would be similar kind of mental makeup that would ensure that a certain kind of difference does exist.
does that mean, like I'm going to use myself as an example, where I question a lot of things. The people of Rishabhdeo Bhagwan's times didn't question everything, or they just accepted everything?
No, they question, but it would be easier for them to understand. I think the answer to this question will become clearer when I actually start the illustration. I start the story. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, Nilma.
Yeah, I just wanted to, in the first slide, there were certain things in the brackets. You explained Achalak and Sachalak, and you may have explained the others, but I didn't quite understand that. There was a Adha
Karma, yeah. Yeah, so I've put down some words on the slide, but I didn't actually explain that in detail. That is to do with the rules of space that monks and nuns use, the rules of who they get food from. So, for example, just a simple, if a monk goes and resides in somebody's house, so they say for the next 4 months, I'm going to be staying in one place during the monsoon months, and can I have some space in your home to stay? And people would say, yes, we've got the space which is free, and you can stay there for the next 3 or 4 months. Or in other places, if there is an upashraya that is specifically built for them, then, for example, if it is built generally for one particular Muni Bhagwant or their Sangh, then that would be difficult, but everybody else could actually use that. So part of the reason for this is that when to reduce the risk of a Muni Bhagwant getting attached to a space, and also to reduce the risk of whoever has donated the use of that space becoming a bit more resistant. So in helping, because the level of generosity may vary. So the rule basically is that if somebody has given you space, then don't trouble them for food as well as other things there. So if you are staying in somebody's house, then you go out and beg for and get gochari from some other people's house. So you would not say, okay, I'm going to stay with you and I'm going to eat. So those people would then be sort of considering the monk as part of the household, and that is discouraged. So some of those rules are dependent on that. And the
So,
last one that I mentioned there was about the vrat, and that is
Mhm.
something that we'll be coming to in a minute.
Okay, so just a quick question then. So obviously you explained that on the first Tirthankar time, the conduct rules were different to the last one, and then in between were different. So are these rules written somewhere?
Yes, so they are, the Kalpa Sutra describes, and there are other sort of texts about the rules, but the rules that apply to us in these times, to our monks, are very clear, and our monks and nuns follow them. But those rules are written. So the Kalpa Sutra describes these 10 different areas. So I've not gone into the detail of that. So again, I would encourage you that maybe next year, where if we are able to do the full Vachana, then we would maybe cover some of this. So unfortunately, we don't have time even during Paryushan. So a lot of these rules are not covered in great detail either, but there is a lot written there. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So let me share my slides again. The illustration that is used to describe the differences goes like this. And a lot of you probably know this story by heart because it's been recited almost during every Paryushan Vachana that you may have gone to. During the time of Bhagwan Rishabdev, there is a group of monks who once got delayed on returning back to their Guru Bhagwant, back to the Upashraya, and the Guru Bhagwant simply asked them why, as part of his duty of ensuring that the monks conducted themselves properly, is that why are you late today on coming back from wherever you've been? So they may have gone for gochari, they may have gone for some other task. So the monk said that along the way, there was a troupe of dancers, Nat, who were performing on the street, and we stood there watching their performance. So they were maybe a troupe of trapeze artists, a troupe of uh, gymnasts, or a troupe of people who were conducting a play on the streets. And says we got delayed because we stood by to observe and to, because that was quite interesting. So the Guru Bhagwant reminds them that a Muni Bhagwant Achar avoids, instructs them to particularly avoid any such natak, any such performance, because that then detracts them from the important aspects of their conduct and their sadhana to emancipate their souls. So those kinds of involvement or even interest in entertainment is not recommended. So the monks had said that we saw a troupe of men actors or dancers who were performing. A few days later, the same group of monks is again delayed in coming back from wherever they had been, and the Guru Bhagwan asks them again, "Why are you late today?" He says, "Well, when we, along the way, we actually saw a troupe of female dancers who were performing, and we stood by to watch them, and that is why we are delayed." So the Guru Bhagwan explains to them that when I told you last time that you are monks and nuns are not allowed, or it is not beneficial, it's actually harmful to them to watch such performances. When I mentioned that to you last time, my instruction included performances by both men and women, so actors and actresses. So that is understood, and that is something that you should understand. And these monks are simple, and even though they had not extrapolated that particular understanding, they very simply apologize and say, "We are sorry, we did not understand that, but now we will remember that particular instruction that we should avoid watching performances by any actors or actresses." So they then internalized that particular understanding without any protest, and they were quite, they progressed onwards from there. If you look at the monks in the times of the middle 22 Tirthankars, so from the time of Bhagwan Ajitnath to Bhagwan Parshanath, a similar scenario would play out like this. Monks come late, the Guru Bhagwan asks them why they are late, and they say, "Oh, we were standing by to observe the performance of some actors on the streets, and that's why we are delayed." The Muni Bhagwan says that that is not the achar, and you must not do that in the future. Next time they are coming back, and along the way there is a group of actresses, nattadis who are performing something, and they themselves say that whenever Guru Bhagwan reminded us last time that this is not the achar of a Muni Bhagwan, of a monk, what he meant when we told him that we were observing some actors, it is understood that that would include actors and actresses. So these actresses who are performing, the same rule applies to them, so we should not be watching them either. So they understood it themselves without having to be told and explained, and they simply accepted it, and their learning was complete even after one set of instructions. What, however, happens as an illustration in this, and it describes very clearly the nature of the kind of people that we are in these times, is that at the time of Bhagwan Mahavir, when the monks are delayed and the Guru Bhagwan says, "Why are you late?" And the monks, for one, are not very forthcoming, because they have a sense that maybe what we did was not right. So they delay a bit and hoo-ha, and then ultimately explain that we were standing some on the street to observe this play conducted by actors. And the Guru Bhagwan says that, please remember that that is not the achar of a Muni Bhagwant, and that is not how we should conduct ourselves. So please remember that for the next time. The next time they are late, for the same kind of reason, they were watching the performance of a group of actresses, Natradis, and they're delayed. And when Guru Bhagwan asked them, why are you delayed? They again hesitate, hoo-ha, and do not actually come out clearly, and Guru Bhagwan waits for them to give a clear explanation. And they say, yes, this time we were delayed because we were watching the performance of a group of Natadis. And they come out with this a bit reluctantly. And then the Guru Bhagwan says that when I told you last time that we are not supposed to, we are not allowed to, it's not right for monks to do this. When you told me that it was actors that you were observing, when I said no to that, it includes automatically actors and actresses. So you should understand that. So the monks then get a bit upset and say, it's all right for you to say this to us now. You should have been clearer the last time when we said, you should have been very clear that it is actors and actresses, and that includes everybody. Now you are telling us off. You are saying that this is wrong, and it is your fault. It's not our fault. You didn't give us a very clear instruction last time. So the reaction is a bit, it's not intelligent, it's jad and vakra. And in terms of our ability to understand context and other things, it is a bit more difficult. So how does that then end up with the differences in the vows of the monks and the nuns during the times of Bhagwan Rishabdev, Bhagwan Mahavir, and the times of the middle 22 Tirthankars from Bhagwan Ajitnath to Bhagwan Parshanath? So we'll spend a bit of time there, and I'll try and explain the reasons of exactly what that means. And I think whenever I've done this before, it is actually a challenge for people to try and grasp this, but let's go at it. Before I come to that, let me just finish this slide. The Kalpa Sutra, the reason why it is so important and the reason why there is so much packed into it and what the value of that is, the Kalpa Sutra, in this Kalpa Sutra Subodhika, there is a section which says that the Kalpa Sutra is compared with the Kalpa Vriksha, that is the wish-fulfilling tree. It grants all wishes. It is described that the description of the life of Bhagwan Mahavir is the seed of this tree. So it's something for us to remember, that what we are actually going to get out of listening to the story of Kalpa Sutra. We are not actually reading the Kalpa Sutra. We are not even reading the Kalpa Sutra Subodhika, which is written, which is read normally during Paryushan. We are just extracting some aspects of it so that we understand it better for the next year. The description of the life of Bhagwan Parshanath is like the first shoots of the tree. The description, please pardon some of the spelling mistakes there, of the life of Bhagwan Nimnath is like the trunk of this tree. The description of the life of Bhagwan Rishabdev is like the branches of the tree. The description of the lineage of the leader monks who carried forth the mantle of the tirth established by Bhagwan Mahavir, Sthaviravali, is like the flowers of the tree. Their conduct is the perfume of the tree, and moksha is the fruit of the tree. That is how Kalpa Sutra is like Kalpa Vriksha. We just done this. In the times of Bhagwan Rishabdev, people are saral but jad. In the times of Bhagwan Ajitnath to Bhagwan Parshnath, people are saral and buddhisali. And in our times, Bhagwan Mahavir's Tirth, we are Vakra and Jad. So, as a result of this difference, the number of vows that a monk and a nun take are different. In our times and in the times of Bhagwan Rishabdev, there are 5 vows. So these are called the 5 Mahavrats. The Shravaks take 5 Anuvrats. Out of the 12 vows of a Shravak, the first 5 are called 5 Anuvrats. Anu means atomic. Atomic in comparison to the Mahavrat, meaning the colossal vows of a monk and a nun are called Mahavrats. In the times of Bhagwan Rishabdev and Bhagwan Mahavir, there are 5 Mahavrats. In the times of Bhagwan Ajitnath to Bhagwan Parshnath, there are 4 Mahavrats. And there is a particular illustration of this, that at the time of Bhagwan Mahavir, there were still quite a few monks who had been ordained under the Tirth of Bhagwan Parshanath, and they were following 4 vows, and what they dressed up as and their conduct was quite different from the monks and nuns who were ordained under the Tirth of Bhagwan Mahavir. And there's a time when Guru Gautam Swami meets with the chief monk who was in the order of Bhagwan Parshanath, and the 2 of them together debate and try and make the people around them understand the differences. And then ultimately the monks and nuns of Bhagwan in the order of Bhagwan Parshanath then carry on and follow the order of Bhagwan, of Mahavir Bhagwan, and take on the 5 vows. So let me try and explain what the 4 vows are and what the 5 vows are. Does everybody know what the 5 vows are? You all heard of the 5 vows of a Jain monk and a nun, haven't you? Panch Mahavrat. When you do Samaik, you say Panchindiya Samvarano Taha Navaviha Bambachara Gutidaro Chauviya Kasai Mukko. E 18 गुणिम समझितो पंच महावैजुतो पंच महाव्रत नाय पालन करनारा 5 महाव्रत. Anybody? Okay. The first Mahavrat is absolute non-violence. The second Mahavrat is about absolute truth. The third Mahavrat is about absolute non-stealing. The fourth Mahavrat is about absolute celibacy. And the fifth Mahavrat is about non-possessiveness. So, Pranatipat Virman Vrat, Mrushavad Virman Vrat, Adattadan Virman Vrat, Brahmacharya Vrat, and Aparigraha Vrat. And in these times also there is a 6th Vrat, that is Ratri Bhojan no Tyag, that completely not eat after sunset. Now, during the times of Bhagwan Ajitnath to Bhagwan Parshanath, the 4th and the 5th Vrat, that is the Brahmacharya Vrat and the Aparigraha Vrat, are combined into one. So, Ahimsa nu Mahavrat, Mrushavad Virman Vrat, Adatadan Virman Vrat, and Aparigraha Vrat. Now, it is understood that if you want to remain celibate, then celibacy is automatically included when you take a vow of non-possessiveness, because lack of celibacy, lack of desires and enjoyment of sexual and other pleasures would automatically mean that those things that you are seeking to give you pleasure, things or people, require you to actually possess them. Now, that concept would be very difficult for us to understand, because if we say that we join up with somebody as a spouse, as a partner, the sense of using each other for pleasure automatically means that you actually take possession of that person, of that object, of whatever. So the moment you remove that desire for objectifying your materials for pleasure, materials, people, then you automatically become celibate. And that is, as far as I understand, the principle why the 5 vows, the 5 are included in those 4 vows. But we would find it very difficult. Therefore, these vows are separated, the 4th and the 5th, during the times of Bhagwan Rishabdev and Bhagwan Mahavir Swami in our current times. Okay. Going back to the Kalpa Sutra again, it was created, just as a reminder, the 8th chapter of the Sasrut Skand Sutra, which is extracted from the 9th Purva called Pratyakhyan Pravad Purva by Bhadrabhav Swami. A question was raised last time, and let me address that here. When I was describing the knowledge base from which the Purvas come and from where all our knowledge comes, when the Tirthankar Paramatmas initiate their Ganadhars, those are the first monks, they give them what is called a Tripadi. So on the basis of that Tripadi, they say Upaneva, Vigamveva, Duveva, the Ganadhars, each one of them expands the knowledge that they gain, because they are possessors of what is called Bij Buddhi, meaning that from very little they will understand and expand to all that can be known or learned, and they develop the 12 angs or Dwad Sangi. Now, a question that was raised last time, in the assumption that Bhagwan Mahavir had 11 Ganadhars, and we're talking about 12 angs, so maybe each one of the Ganadhars created 1 ang each. That is not what is meant. Each Ganadhar would create the full body of their knowledge themselves independently. The meaning of everything that they create would be the same. but in sutra form, in terms of what the actual words are and what the verses are, that may vary between each Ganadhar Bhagwant. But the meaning of everything that was given to them and their Bij Buddhi allowed them to actually expand that body of knowledge, that would contain the same thing. But it wasn't like Sandeep was understanding last week, that each Ganadhar created maybe one Ang. So, and every Tirthankar Paramatma initiates Ganadhars who set out the Tirth and then expand it. So different Tirthankars have different number of Ganadhars. Bhagwan Mahavir had 11 and the other Tirthankars had different numbers. But each one of them at the time of the initiation, when they are given the Tripadi, would create the full body of knowledge based on their total understanding of the Tripadi. The 14 Purvas, the names of those are like this. The first is called Utpad Purva. The second is called Agrayani Purva. The third is called Virya Pravad Purva. The fourth is called Asti Pravad Purva. Fifth is called Gnan Pravad Purva. Sixth is called Satya Pravad Purva. Seventh is called Atma Pravad Purva. Eighth is called Karma Pravad Purva. The ninth is called Pratyakhyan Pravad Purva. The 10th is called Vidya Pravad Purva. The 11th is called Kalyan Pravad Purva. The 12th is called Pranavai Purva. The 13th is called Kriya Vishal Purva. And the 14th is called Lok Bindu Sar Purva. Now, the 14 Purvas are part of the 12th Ang called Drashtivad. The first 11 Angs are different. The 14 Purvas are part of the 12th Ang, that is Drashtivad. And out of those 12 Purva, Kalpa Sutra is extracted from the 9th Purva called Pratyakhan Pravad. The 8th chapter of this Purva called Dasasrut Skand and Dasasrut Skand was extracted from the Pratyakhan Pravad, that is the 9th Purva, by Bhadrabhav Swami. The Kalpa Sutra Subodhika explains the amount of knowledge that is contained in the 14 Purvas, and it is so vast that it is impossible to actually expand on it. In the current times, most of the knowledge of all the Purvas have gone. So very little remains. What we have is the Kalpa Sutra, which is part of one of the Purvas. The knowledge contained in the 14 Purvas is so vast that it is only described in terms of how much ink is needed to write them. Now, I won't go into the details of how it is explained, but just as an example, the first Purva is written by dry ink equivalent to the weight of one elephant. And the second Purva similarly goes up exponentially, so 2 and then 4 and then 16, like that. And in summary, one would need dry ink equivalent to the weight of 16,383 elephants to write the 14 Purvas. This is just a way of describing the amount of knowledge that is contained in the 14 Purvas. And as we said, most of it is, almost all of it is lost now. The public reading of Kalpa Sutra began 980 years, alternative narrative 993 years after the Nirvana of Bhagwan Mahavir. The story of how the first reading of Kalpa Sutra started in the city-state of Anandpur, which was ruled by King Dhruv Sen, is as follows. This is not the slide for that particular story. I'll quickly recite that story. King Dhruv Sen in the city-state of Anandpur, once lost his young son, died suddenly, and the king was extremely dejected and sad because of this sudden death of his beloved son. He went into a state of depression, and because the king was not actually active and attending any functions, and there didn't seem to be any joy in the palace, the rest of the city and the rest of the great people also felt that it wasn't right for them to be celebrating festivals. Soon the time of Paryushan was near, and when one of the Acharya Bhagwans saw that the people had stopped coming to the upashrays and listening to the sermons by the Muni Bhagwans, and the reason for that was that the king was not partaking or participating in any of these activities. So the general public, the Jains in those communities, also avoided going to those pravachans because they felt that it wasn't right when the king was grieving and bereaved that they could go to such events. So this Acharya Bhagwan, Guru Bhagwan goes to the king and says, look, now that you are, the fact that you are so sad, let us start reading a narrative of the Kalpa Sutra, which will, once you start listening to it and understanding it, will lift you out of this black hole of sadness and depression. And it is at that time, to try to get the king out of his state of depression, that the reading of the Kalpa Sutra began in public. So from that time onwards, so from 980 years after the Nirvana of Bhagwan Mahavir, the first reading of Kalpa Sutra started, and since then it's been carried on. During Paryushan, in the first few days, we all talk about the 5 kartavyas of Jains during Paryushan, and one particular kartavya that we will just talk about, because that is illustrated by a very nice story of Nagaketu. And I'll narrate this story and then we'll end today's class for any questions. Now, this is a story of a very of a newly born infant son in the city-state of Chandrakanta, where there was a king Vijay Sen who was ruling. And in this city, there is a merchant called Shrikant and his wife Shri Sakhi. After a long time and after a lot of efforts, Shri Sakhi once gives birth to an infant, and I've given the name here, but the child was actually named later on. So this infant son is born, and on the this was around the time when the Paryushan festival was approaching, and because this was a Jain household, all the members of this household and the family members were discussing what they would be doing in terms of tap, in terms of what sort of upvas they would be doing. So this young infant keeps on hearing this word called attham tap, because everybody's talking that they would be doing an attham tap, because part of the normal duties of a Jain Shravak of a Jain during Paryushan. On listening to these words, he begins to feel that, I've heard something like this. And because of the familiarity from his previous life, he suddenly remembers his past life, where he had died just as he had resolved himself that he would do an attham tap in the next Paryushan. And he remembers that. So this infant just newly born, with the knowledge of his previous life, decides to actually fast for the next 3 days. Now, the infant, the only food that he's having is his mother's milk. So, to keep this vow, what he decides is that he would not be suckling at his mother's breast. And he stops drinking any milk. The parents are extremely worried. They don't know what's going on. They try and get experts and Vaids to come and have a look and see if there is anything wrong with the child. The child has resolved, the infant has resolved that he's not going to drink any milk for 3 days. The parents are extremely worried. The whole household is in uproar, but they don't know what to do. Now, the infant not drinking any milk for 3 days obviously ends up with him becoming unconscious. He loses consciousness, he wastes away, and he has lost a lot of weight. Those of you who know about, all of us have seen babies. Imagine that a baby who may need 4, 5, 10 plus feeds a day from his mother's breasts does not drink any milk. So this infant becomes unconscious, and his parents are so shocked that once his father dies, and soon after, as a result of this shock that the infant has died, they believe that the infant has become unconscious, and they believe that he has actually passed away because he's not been drinking any milk. And they are so saddened and shocked that both the parents actually die, because this was a child who had been born after a lot of effort, and it was a much desired child, and they did not have any other. Now, when the parents have died, the word spreads around the kingdom that this Seth Shrikant and his wife Sri Sakhi have both died, and they've not left an heir, because the only surviving heir was the infant son, and he has died as well. The rule in this kingdom was that anybody who died without an heir, the king's men would come and confiscate all the wealth that that person had. So as soon as this message gets through to the court, the king's courtiers and men come round to this house to pack up everything and take it to the king as part of the kingdom's inheritance, because this particular merchant had died without any heir. Now, as a result of this tap, Indra Maharaja, his Sinhasan moves, and he uses his Audignan to try and understand why this has happened. And he realizes that there is an infant in Bharat in this particular city-state of Chandrakanta, who is unconscious as a result of his tap of Atham during Paryushan. And because it's a very holy event, the child's punya stimulates Indra to come down, and he takes the form of a Brahmin and stops the king's soldiers and men and say, look, you cannot take this wealth from this particular child, because the child is still alive. Nobody believes him. But Indra then, by this time, the people have actually buried the child as well. So Indra, this Brahmin, digs him out and demonstrates to people that he's actually alive and he's breathing. So the king's men then go back and report to the king. The king himself comes down and says, what is this? And asks the Brahmin, who actually are you? And how did you know that this child was alive? And Indra then tells him that I am Lord Indra from Naglok, from Dharanendra, and I realized what was happening. So that's why I've come to rescue this child, and you cannot take away his wealth because this is his. And in the future, this particular person is actually going to be of great help to you and to this whole city state. So please return all his wealth. And Dharanendra then leaves him in good hands. The child then grows up. Dharanendra has left him with a very nice, extremely valuable necklace. And the child then carries on with his life, looked after by all the other members of the household, and becomes very proficient, very religious, and grows up as a very popular person in this city state. Once Nagaketu, who was performing puja in a derasar and using some flowers to place in the front of Tirthankar Paramatma's murti, this bunch of flowers contained a poisonous snake within it, and it bits Nagaketu. Nagaketu is bitten by a poisonous snake, and the poison starts spreading, but he does not lose his concentration and focus on the puja and carries on with it in full concentration. And in conducting his puja in this state of pain and discomfort as the poison is spreading, he actually gets rid of all his ghati karmas and achieves Keval Gnan in that temple itself while he's performing this puja. So he's now become a Keval Gnani, and soon afterwards he takes Diksha. Before this happens, there is another incident which Indra had reminded the king that he is going to be very helpful to you. Once in this kingdom, the king had punished an innocent person because the circumstances suggested that this person was a thief and that he had stolen something valuable from some people. So the king's men have caught him and punished him, and the punishment for this kind of robbery was the death sentence. And so this person was put to death by the king. And in his next life, this person who was wrongly accused of thievery actually becomes a yaksh. And to punish the king and the whole of the town, he creates a huge piece of rock that covers the whole of the city, threatening to throw it down. Nagaketu, who by this time was known to be an extremely punyasali, climbs up one of the temples, and on the top of the sikhar, he holds up his hand and actually stops the Shila, this particular large rock, from falling down and crushing everybody in this particular city. So just imagine there's a huge piece of rock that is threatening to crush this whole city, and it's that large. So Nagaketu had that power, and the Yaksh who was threatening the city sees that this Nagaketu is extremely punyashali, that he does not have the power to actually overcome his strength. So he removes this particular Shila, comes down and bows down to Nagaketu and asks for his forgiveness, and then understands something about from what Nagaketu has explained to him, and goes back to his abode as a yaksh. And Nagaketu then becomes very famous within the city, and sometime later, this particular incident of him being bitten by a snake and achieving Keval Gnan happens, and then he becomes a monk and then explains dharma to a lot of people as a Keval Gnani. So that is the story of Nagketu that is given in the Kalpa Sutra Vyakhyanmala, in the Kalpa Sutra Subodhika, in the first or the second Vyakhyan. So that's why I included it here today. Three main topics, Vachanas in the Kalpa Sutra. The first is the lives of the Tirthankar Bhagwans, and that includes mainly the life of Bhagwan Mahavir, then Bhagwan Parshvanath, Bhagwan Nemnath, Bhagwan Rishabdev, and then in brief the lives of the other Tirthankars. The short narratives on the lives of the Ganadhar Bhagwans and the monks in the lineage of Bhagwan Mahavir. So the narratives about all the 11 Ganadhars, and then later on Jambu Swami, Prabhu Swami, and all the people who succeeded Bhagwan Mahavir and took on the mantle. Then there is the third topic is Samachari, the rules of conduct of monks. And a lot of this is included in the 9th Vyakhyan in the Kalpa Sutra Subodhika. That is it for today. We'll carry on next week. So we got some time for questions. I'll stop sharing the slides now. Anybody? Mirad, any questions? Yeah.
I've received a question from Nick.
Yeah.
Is it right to say that we are following Mahavir Swamiji's session?
We are, yes. We are in that sasan, and this is Mahavir Bhagwan's tirth, the tirth that he established. We are his disciples. Whether we follow what he taught us and whether we have taken liberties is a different question. But as Jains, we are Bhagwan Mahavir's children. In this time, he is our immediate Tirthankar Bhagwan. We are all living in his sasan, in his tirth.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question on the chat, Mira?
Not to me.
No. Okay. Pratibha Ben and then Jayashri. You need to unmute Pratibha Ben.
ઓકે જય જીનેન્દ્ર
Jai Jinendra.
મારે શું પૂછવું હતું કે જે આ તમે 980 years કયા ને કે કલ્પસૂત્ર લખાયું તો પછી આગમનું પણ એવું જ આવે છે કે વલ્લભપુરીમાં એ
વલ્લભીપુરીમાં.
ટાઈમે જ લખાણું તો બે
બરાબર.
સાયમલ્ટેનિયસ લખાણા હોય.
હા, એટલે ત્યારે બધું જે લોકો ભૂલતા જતા હતા, એટલે વલ્લભીપુરમાં આચાર્ય ભગવંતોની સભા ભરાણી અને ત્યારથી લખાણ શરૂ થયું. એટલે ત્યારે આ બધું શરૂ થયું અને આ જે વાંચના જે શરૂ થઈ સંઘની અંદર એ પણ ત્યારે થઈ. એટલે કલ્પસૂત્રની વાંચના જ્યારે શરૂઆત થઈ ત્યારે.
તો એ બધું એટલે મને એવું હતું કે આ બહુ મોડું વાંચવાનું શરૂ થયું. આર યુ શ્યોર કે તમારે 12th સેન્ચુરીમાં એનું જે વાંચવાનું શરૂ આ લખાણું તો બાળભદ્ર
980,
સ્વામીના
હા.
વખતે.
You may be right. Wait a minute.
એટલે it's okay, આપણે next time એ તો ડિસ્કસ કરશું.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
don't have to now waste the time for that. That's fine.
ના હું જોઈ
પણ
લઈશ.
તમે અમને નેક્સ્ટ
પણ
ટાઈમ
you may
કહેજો
be-
કન્ફર્મ કરવા, બીકોઝ
હા.
મારા પ્રમાણે કે એમ લાગે છે કે ઈ મોડું વાંચવાનું શરૂ થયું. પેલા
એટલે
સાધુ
આમાં
ભગવંતો જ વાંચતા હતા.
એટલે વાંચવાનું જ્યારે પેલા સાધુ ભગવંતો જ વાંચતા હતા એ વાત બરાબર છે, અને આપણે લાસ્ટ ટાઈમ કહ્યું હતું કે કલ્પસૂત્રની જે વાંચના થતી હતી એ સાધુ ભગવંતો પર્યુષણના છેલ્લા દિવસે, પાંચમના દિવસે, ત્યારે સંવત્સરી પ્રતિક્રમણ પછી કૌશક ધ્યાનમાં ઊભા રહી અને કલ્પસૂત્ર એક મુનિ ભગવંત સંભળાવતા હતા અને બીજા બધા કૌશકમાં ઊભા રહી અને સાંભળતા હતા.
ઓકે.
અને આમાં જે કલ્પસૂત્ર સુબોધિકાના પેજ 63માં આ પ્રમાણે લખાણ છે. શ્રી મહાવીર પ્રભુના નિર્વાણ બાદ 980 વર્ષે અને મતાંતરે 993 વર્ષે આનંદપુર નગરમાં આ કલ્પસૂત્ર સૌ પહેલા સભા સમક્ષ વાંચવામાં આવ્યું. આ વિશે એવી કથા પ્રચલિત છે કે આનંદપુર નગરના ધ્રુવસેન રાજા રાજ્ય કરતો હતો. એના એકના એક પુત્રનું મૃત્યુ નિપજવાથી રાજાને બેહદ સંતાપ થયો. એ સંતાપને લીધે તેણે ઉપાશ્રયમાં ગુરુ મહારાજ પાસે જવાનો પણ ઉત્સાહ થતો ન હતો. રાજાની ઉદાસીનતા જોઈ ગામના બીજા પ્રતિષ્ઠિત અમલદારો અને ગૃહસ્થો પણ ઉપાશ્રયમાં જતા બંધ થઈ ગયા. એટલામાં પર્યુષણ પર્વ આવ્યું. રાજાને અત્યંત શોકાતુર થયેલો જાણી ગુરુ મહારાજ રાજા પાસે ગયા અને ત્યાં સંસારની અસારતા તથા શોકની વ્યર્થતા અસરકારક રીતે સમજાવી. વિશેષમાં ગુરુ મહારાજે કહ્યું કે તમે શોકને દૂર કરી આ મહાપર્યુષણ પર્વમાં ઉપાશ્રય આવો તો શ્રી ભદ્રભાવ સ્વામીએ પૂર્વમાંથી ઉદરેલું કલ્પસૂત્ર તમને વાંચી સંભળાવું.
ઓકે.
એટલે આ કલ્પસૂત્ર સુબોધિકામાં આ પ્રમાણે લખાણ છે. એટલે જે કલ્પસૂત્ર તમે જે વાત કરી, જે સાધુ મહારાજો જ સાંભળતા હતા, ત્યાં સુધી શ્રાવકો અને શ્રાવિકાઓ સાંભળવાનું આ ટાઈમે શરૂ થયું.
ના, એટલે આમાં શું મને કન્ફ્યુઝન લાગ્યું કે આગમ પણ ત્યારે જ લખાણા, કલ્પસૂત્ર ભલે આઈ કેન એગ્રી કે ત્યારે જ લગભગ લખાયું હોય, પણ એ આગમ લખવા વાળા અને કલ્પસૂત્ર લખવા વાળા જુદા છે. આગમની તો સ્ટોરી એવી રીતે આવે છે ને કે આખું જૈન સભાનો સંઘ ભેગો થયો અને પછી એ લોકોએ નક્કી કર્યું 500 સાધુ કે આચાર્ય ભગવંતોએ લખવાનું શરૂ કર્યું આગમ. એટલે આ યર્સમાં થોડું કન્ફ્યુઝન છે, પણ we'll do more research then next time discuss. I will also see what I have.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. જય શ્રીબેન. Thank you.
મને ખાલી આમ ક્વેશ્ચન આવ્યો, જેવી રીતે દરેક તીર્થંકર ભગવાન થાય ત્યારે એમના ગણને એ લોકો ત્રિપદી આપે અને પછી દરેક વખતે બધા આવી રીતે દ્વાદશાંગીની રચના કરે.
મારું એવું માનવું છે કે દ્વાદશાંગી જે શ્રુત જ્ઞાનની છે એની ત્રિપદી ઉપરથી શ્રુત જ્ઞાનની રચના થાય અને લોકોમાં એ પ્રમાણે એનો સમજ આવતી જાય. અને સૂત્રથી જે સમજ આવે એટલે સૂત્રથી જે રચના થાય એની લખાણનું તો ઇટ્સ મોડર્ન કોન્સેપ્ટ. ત્યાં સુધી તો લોકો પહેલા ગુરુ પરંપરાથી ગુરુ પાસેથી સાંભળે, યાદ રાખે અને ગુરુ શિષ્ય એ પ્રમાણે નોલેજ પાસ ઓન થતું હતું. અને તાડપત્ર ઉપર જે લખવાનું ની જે શરૂઆત થઈ એ તો જ્યારે લોકોને યાદ રાખવું અઘરું પડવા માંડ્યું ત્યારથી લખવાની શરૂઆત કરી. એટલે જેમ પ્રતિભાબેને કહ્યું કે ત્યારે બધા જે આગમો લખવાની જ્યારે શરૂઆત કરી કે જેને જેટલું ખ્યાલ હોય, યાદ હોય એ પ્રમાણે હવે લખી રાખીએ, કારણ કે જો લખશું નહીં તો કોઈને યાદ નહીં રહે હવે. એટલે એક્ઝેક્ટલી બીજા તીર્થંકર પરમાત્માના વખતની અંદર નોલેજની દ્રષ્ટિએ આ હોય, પણ લખાણ અને હસ્તલિખિત પ્રતો કેટલી ક્યાં હયાત હશે અને ક્યારે લખાણી હશે એ જાણવું અઘરું છે. પણ લખાણની પદ્ધતિ આપણા શાસ્ત્રો ઘણા જૂના પણ અમુક છે અને આપણે વેદોની જે પરંપરા છે એના પણ અમુક જે લખવાનું શરૂ કર્યું તો એને ઘણા 5-6 હજાર વર્ષો કે એનાથી જરાક વધારે એટલી જૂની કદાચ ક્યાંય પ્રતો મળતી હશે. પણ રિટન શાસ્ત્રોઝ are more recent, but that doesn't mean that the knowledge and the what was learned by by the sishyas from the gurus and from their gurus and from their gurus. હવે આજે સ્થુલીભદ્રની આપણે વાત કરીએ તો સ્થુલીભદ્ર learned all the 14 purvas or 10 purvas initially from Bhadrabhav Swami as a narrative. So there wasn't a text. So Bhadrabhav Swami would be reciting something, he would retain it all, understand the meaning, and it was one vachna, ek var kahi ditu, atle that was it. That would, you retain it all forever.
Yeah,
So that is the kind of,
yeah, Shakti.
yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. All right. I think there are no other questions that I can see on the chat or on the no other raised hands. So we'll end the class today and look forward to seeing you all next week. If I've said anything that is against the teachings of the great Tirthankar Paramatmas and our Shastras, I ask for forgiveness. If I made any mistakes in my narration that is contrary to what is the truth, again, apologize and ask for forgiveness. जिनाज्ञा विरुद्ध कहीं पण बुलाये केवल विचारये ते सोई मन वचन काय करे तस्मिच्छामि दुक्कडम सर्वमंगल मांगल्यम सर्वकल्याण कारणम प्रदानम सर्वधर्माणाम जैनम जयति शासनम. Keep well. See you all next week.